Welcome to another episode of Just Elite. I have a wonderful guest with me today, Carolyne Prevost, the 2021 27th fittest woman on earth. Carolyne, firstly, congratulations on a stellar performance at this year's games. What a fight. Tell us everything. Let's start from the start. Let's start from day one. What was your overall experience this year?
Yeah, definitely different experience than 2019, where every single event they were making cuts. So we got a chance to do a little bit more events this time around. So we got a little bit more of what the games experience was like. It was my very first swim event at the games. Sorry, the dogs are a little crazy here. It was my very first swim event at the games, and it was the longest swim event they had ever programmed. So it was a 1 mile swim followed by 3 miles of kayak. The swim for me was a PR. I had never swam in open water for that distance before. So I knew that was going to be a pretty weak event for me because of the swim. I ended up being I think second last out of the water, but made up some ground actually on the kayak. I think I passed 8 or 9 girls on the kayak. But I was so far behind at that point on the swim that you can only do so much. That event was so long. It was an hour 15 to an hour 20 for most people. And just out on the water, it just blew up also your shoulders and your grip just from holding the kayak the whole time. I was trying to relax, but my forearms, my shoulders were lit up from that event. I was actually fairly happy. I was 26, I think, in that event, which was around what I expected. I'm not a swimmer.
I want to quickly.
I was just happy to. I was happy to survive the swim.
Karen, I want to ask: have you ever trained with flippers? Because you guys were given flippers at the end. And, just before the event started, you were told, okay, listen, or the night before you were told, listen, this is what's going to happen. Have you ever trained with them? What effect did they have on, especially on the kicking and the leg muscles?
I had never really trained with fins before. I think good swimmers, it just gave them a better advantage, and crappy swimmers like me, it didn't do that much. It brings you up a little bit more, so you're a little bit more buoyant, but in terms of the speed, you need to also know how to kick properly. And I'm a bad swimmer because I don't kick very well. So you add fins, I probably still don't kick that well anyways. So it was, to me, it just felt, mentally maybe I was oh, I'm moving faster than I would, but I think in execution, the good swimmers, with or without fins, it didn't make a difference.
That was the start of the week.
I was still
No, continue.
I was still gonna be pretty far back with whether I had fins or not fins.
Well, I think you did better than anybody else that they didn't qualify. So congratulations on surviving a swim that far with fins or not. You said earlier in our conversation that it's completely different to what your experience was in 2019. Obviously 2020, that was completely different to anything else that we've ever seen. Experiencing a field this small in comparison to your rookie year in 2019, where it seemed like there were 200 females, 200 men, it just, it was chaotic. Knowing that you were going to at least, make it into day 2, did that give you a little bit of relief, just that little bit of relaxation, finishing not, at the back of the pack, especially after the first event?
Yes and no. I think it was still constantly in my head. I think going into the games, I didn't expect them to do the cuts the way that they announced that they were making the cuts 3 days before we started. And it kind of took us oh, okay. That would have been nice to know before. Not that it would change anything, but it still adds pressure and stress, because you're well, it depends what the events are. So I was definitely still stressed about it. Not as much as 2019, because that was every single event. What is it going to be? Because if that's not a good event, you could be out. But just still, I don't think you can ever be really complacent. Everyone is so good at that level that you just can't think that your spot is guaranteed to make the cut, except for some people can. Tia does not have to worry about the cuts. She just wins every event.
No, what Tia Claire Toomey has been doing for the past 5 years is just, it's something that, yeah, it's going to stand the test of time. It's going to be written in the history books, and we'll be speaking about her for many, many years to come. Not that she's going anywhere. She made that very clear. Tell us about competing next to somebody of that level. She's been at the games. This was her 7th year, her 5th golden medal. But for you, you know, you've been around, you've been doing the sport for so long, but competing with somebody that good, what does it do to you and your performance?
I don't think I even look at competing against Tia. Like, I don't even look at her in the equation. Unless it was like a wheelhouse workout for me and I'd be like, oh, maybe I can beat her in this one. You just kind of let her do her thing. I'm not trying to beat Tia in most of these events. Like, if I do try to chase her, I'm probably gonna gas out and die because I can't compete at the level that she is. She's just on another level of everyone on the field. So it's basically a race for second place. Like, when Tia is involved in the field at this point right now in her career, with Tia being healthy, it's Tia and then the rest of us. So yeah, it's just cool to see what she's able to do and how much she's been able to kind of push us women to, to get better and just to show us what's possible, because she's just good at every single thing, everything.
I asked one of your countrymen, Pat Valner, a few years ago when Matt Fraser was still competing, and I think this was like after his 2nd or his 3rd win, and I asked him, what will it take to beat Matt? And he said, everybody needs to be better. And I think that's what Tia is also doing now, is she is pushing everybody to a point where they didn't think they can even survive or train at a level that seemed natural or capable, a few years ago. You said that you don't really look at Tia when you compete, and you let her do her thing. When you start your event, you look at the event, is this in my wheelhouse? Is it not? Do you actually look at, I need to beat this person? I'm not talking about the leaderboard. Or do you go, I need to execute this to my best ability?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think when an event is announced, if it's a good workout for you, like, you kind of know in the field what people's strengths are, like who's a good runner, who's a good sprinter, who's a strong person. So you kind of know who are the ones that you want to be by. And if it's not a good workout, then most of the time, if it's not a good workout, like, you're just trying to strategize. There's only so much you can do. And then you try to make it so, damage control in terms of points. But I think there's always a little bit of kind of being aware of where you are in the race, while also focusing on what you can even control, which is your game plan.
Going into that last event, knowing that they're going to make more cuts, your mindset going into that, knowing that this might be my last event for this year's games, walk us through that, going into that, knowing that, the possibility is there that my weekend will end here and I won't go further.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because so in 2019, I had the same mindset, but it was a wheelhouse workout. It was a sprint. So I came in 19th in that one, knowing that was going to be my last event, but also knowing it was my best event. So I just enjoyed it, had fun, crushed it. This one was announced, and it ends up being basically the reverse of 2019, where instead of having a sprint being like the top end speed sprinters kind of being favored, it was the 5K specialist, basically the 3-mile run. The Tosta bars, every woman basically in the field, I'd say 95% of the girls were unbroken.
Yeah.
So it really wasn't a Tosta bar workout. It was a long distance, who has the fastest 3-mile, which is completely the opposite of what my strength is as a sprinter. So I did my best. I tried to go as fast as I could with the cycling. I tried to push a little bit on the first round, but once I got out on the jog, I was like, no, I can't maintain the pace that these girls are at. Like, I just don't have that capacity to run at the speed that they were doing. And I had to kind of dial back my run because I was like, that's just not where I'm at right now. And I knew at that point, like, you're just finishing the workout, trying to do the best I could. I ended with, a 100-meter sprint to the finish line as fast as I could at the end, kind of finished in a, highlight there. But yeah, there's not much you can do when it's not your wheelhouse workout. And that's what the workout was a long distance run. So you looked at who did well in that workout, it was the best runners in the group. So I got the good end of the stick in 2019, where I went from like 19th to 12th in one event and almost made it. Sam Briggs, I think was like 30th or 29th and made it all the way to 21st just off that event because she's such a good runner. So she actually almost made the cut just because, you know, so it favored that type of athlete this time around. And in 2019, it favored me as like my type of strength. So
I mean, it's kind of luck of the draw.
It's luck of the draw. Like, had that been a different style of event, you can kind of more enjoy the last event, but I didn't enjoy a 3-mile run as my last event. It was hot and it was difficult.
And I mean, you girls, you were keeping quite a pace. I'm not talking about the front end girls that came in, you know, in the first top 5. That's just ridiculous. But I mean, it was ridiculous. The whole group, you guys were, I mean, that is very, very fast for a 5K run.
Yeah, and I don't consider myself a bad long distance runner, but those girls are just at that, like, are just at a better level. Like, they're just better. Like, it's just when you get to the world championships, like, you know, you think like you're not that bad, but comparison to who's out on the field with you, and that's the, you know, the top of the sport, just not good enough. Like, that's just what it was. It came down to my distance running needs to improve in order to stay with those girls at the top and not get eliminated. Because at the end of the weekend, that was my biggest hole. Was there was like 3 events that were running events, purely basically running events. Like event number 6, which had a power clean that was pretty light. Everyone was just coming to the bar and doing a power clean. It just came down to that 1,250 meter run. So again, if you had decent lifting and you're a good runner, you excelled there. The 500 meter run, I won't even call it a sprint because I don't think that's a sprint. It was another running event. So those are the distances that I need to get better at. And then a lot of like the machine work, the ski ergs, the echo bike, just stuff that it's definitely an advantage to be a bigger athlete and really pull on those. I think those will be definitely my focus in this upcoming year. There wasn't as much of like lower body leg this time around, which is like what I like, deadlifts, squats. Yeah, there wasn't as much of that this time. A lot of upper body pulling the entire time. So you just kind of look at the weekend, what the events were. You know, sometimes their program is going to be good for you. Sometimes it's not going to be as good for you. This time around, I didn't have any workouts that I looked and I was like, oh, this is the perfect combination of stuff to attack. It was every time it was paired with something and I was like it's damage control. And then there's a few like a few execution that you can do better. And you know, if you don't execute perfectly on on your 2 or 3 events that you can do fairly well, those points are lost, and over the weekend, like, they accumulate. Like, there's you can't make too many mistakes at this level.
Was it fairly stressful going into the games, knowing, you know, it's an international pandemic with COVID, and they were testing you guys as you got to the games, and then you knew, you know, there was some of your some of the athletes that tested positive. Did that bring some kind of extra stress into competing?
So they only tested athletes who were not vaccinated. So I'm fully vaccinated. I also took a COVID test prior to traveling. I wear my mask all the time. I know this is my opportunity. This is the biggest competition of my year. And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that I'm not testing I'm not testing positive when I'm there, right? So even throughout the weekend, with the athletes, I knew that the athletes that were there had been tested or were fully vaccinated. But anytime I walked around like the fan area, I wore a mask and stayed like safe as possible. So I wasn't as nervous for myself because I felt like I took care of what I could control as much as possible. And if other athletes weren't as cautious or didn't take certain precautions, it's not something I can control. Like, it's not. So
It's out of your hands.
how I
Yeah.
feel about that. Yeah, it's out of my hands. Like,
Yeah.
I look at some of the Olympians. So there's Olympians that are testing positive right before they're going to compete and like before traveling. And it's like, what are you doing the week or two prior to going to the biggest stage of your life? Like, if you're not vaccinated, are you wearing a mask? Are you taking it seriously? And if you're not and you test positive, I don't like,
Yeah.
I don't like, if you did everything you could and whatnot, and you test positive, like that sucks. Like, it's, you don't want to see any of your competitors not be there. You want to be competing against all of the top athletes. And, a lot of the athletes that were, that went down with the COVID tests are some of the best in the sport. Top 10 potential for sure. So you definitely want to be competing against them. And I feel bad their season ended that way for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just my opinion on it.
Carolyne, before we move on from this year's games, if you can describe this year's experience in one sentence. I wanted to say one word, but I don't want to restrict you that much. What would it be?
Like, I'm very proud of my season. I thought I had some really good moments, and this was definitely the fittest I have felt. I just feel not disappointed because I am proud of my season. I feel like it was like unfinished a little bit because I didn't get to fully showcase certain strengths that I know I have at that top level at the World Championships, and it just didn't happen to be programmed or to come together. There's like that, just like there's a little hole that's just kind of hungry for next year for sure to hopefully get back there and get that. But overall, I'm very proud of my season. There's things that I have to continue to work on, and then I'll work on. But I had a good semifinal. I did well throughout the Open, the quarterfinals. Yeah, I'm continuing to grow it like every time. But yeah, so they're just like happy, but not quite satisfied with where I ended.
That's a true competitor right there. And Carolyne, I have to say you had more than just a good season. You placed fairly high in the Worldwide Open, 26th. You had first at the Atlas Games. You came 18th in the quarterfinals, and I think you had a brilliant season up to leading up to the games. I have to ask: have you tried freestanding handstands yet? And handstand push-ups yet?
I haven't tried since they announced them, but I've done them plenty of times over the years. Most of the time was to an ab mat. I would do one, walk a little bit to another ab mat. So not in the regulation that they had, but that's probably the workout I would have enjoyed the most by far out of any of the 15 events, because the deadlift, that's my best movement, and I didn't get to do that. And the freestanding and what I've done before were a good movement for me. So, but I was cut prior.
Yeah.
So I didn't get to do it.
That must have sucked, eh? That must have been hard to watch though.
Yeah, I felt like a lot of the things that I wanted to do were in the back end of the weekend. A lot of the more gymnastics, weightlifting, combinations were a little bit further on in the weekend, and a lot more of the aerobic dependent workouts and upper body pulling and stuff was there's still a lot of upper body pulling in the back end, but yeah, just most of my strengths were more in the back end.
Yeah. Carolyne, I want to talk to you about your career. Yes, we're speaking about CrossFit, but you have a day job. You're a teacher.
I'm on summer vacation right now.
Yes, no, I'm aware you're on vacation. But I mean, your vacation is not nine months of the year. I mean, you're a full-time teacher and you play hockey. You used to be a professional hockey player. You now play for, just remind me again, which league are you playing for?
Well, it's not really a league anymore because our professional league folded. So we're actually on the verge of creating a new, better professional league. So we're called the PWHPA, so Professional Women's Hockey Player Association. And we're looking at kind of launching that league probably around not this upcoming season, but the one after.
Okay, next question is, when do you sleep?
I sleep pretty early.
When you do all of this, I mean, where do you find the time? Honestly, there's only 24 hours. Let's say you have to sleep at least 8 hours training the way you do.
Yeah. Yep. Well, it depends. So in the past years when I had hockey practices, on days that I have hockey practices, they usually are very late at night, like 9 to 10:30 at night. So on the next day, a lot of times that was my active recovery day or my rest day. And that so that I could, you know, do the things I needed to do. But most of the time I sleep probably around like 9:30. So I get my 8 hours. I make sure I'll do the math to get my 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And then for training, in the past years, it's been a lot of times one longer session after school. But with COVID the last year and a half, it's allowed me to kind of separate my sessions a little bit morning and evening, because some of our schooling was virtual and from home for a while. So I didn't have to commute to work. I didn't have to coach different things at different time of the day. So I actually saved roughly 2 hours in my day. So I got to kind of put that back into training and separate my sessions there. And then there was less hockey in the past year. So that also gave me a little bit more time to train.
You talk about one
as
long
things
session.
continue.
Sorry, you talk about one long session after school. What is a long session? Because I mean, a school day is pretty long. You are a high school math and science teacher and PE, obviously, so you coach as well. But what time does your day end school wise? And then how long is your training session?
So school ends at 2:45. 2:30 school ends, but then there's 15 minutes of buses. Like we can't leave 15 minutes prior and after school. So I'll say 2:45. I probably get to the gym around like 3:15. I'm not one that warms up for like an hour and a half and does a bunch of other things. I just don't have the time, or maybe it's not my priority. My body generally feels pretty good. I don't have any like major injuries or anything like that. And I'm pretty cautious with like how I take care of my body. So I'm almost like starting right away. I'd say from like, let's say 3:30 to 6:30-ish, about 3 hours, give or take, I'd say is probably the average. And then sometimes it would be 3 hours of CrossFit, eat a little bit, and then like an hour and a half of hockey practice. So, which would also count as training, because that's a lot of like anaerobic, sprinting on the ice, stops and starts. So you get a lot of lactic acid there. So on days that I have hockey practice, I normally wouldn't do one of my cardio pieces because I'll get it through hockey. So I'll just kind of move some pieces around of my programming depending on what I'll do in the evening, if I have hockey or not.
So your days,
you move things around.
You've got a schedule. You must have a proper spreadsheet of, Carolyne, this is what I need to do today, and if I'm a minute late, this is gonna like not work out.
This has been my schedule since I was a kid, but reverse in roles, like as I was a student for those same hours, played sports after school. I had like a couple sports after school and then homework or whatnot. So it's the same thing, just a little bit of a reverse role in terms of teaching and corrections instead of doing the homework or lesson planning. But so I feel like I got that schedule down since I was young. So I think that's why I like the teaching job too, because it's familiar. It allows me to have my evenings. I like teaching different things. So, but yeah, I have everything like written down on my cell phone, like in my little calendar, like what I have to do. So it's pretty good.
No, you definitely you've got your stuff sorted. It's a well-oiled machine. there's with our sport growing, and it's still very young, more and more athletes, elite athletes, start doing this professionally, full time, because being an elite and the level that you guys are training and performing, it requires more time, more rest. You've got a bunch of people helping you. Is this something that you would consider in the future, or do you like the balance of having that, escape from, if I can call work an escape, teaching and then your hockey as well?
No, I would not do this full time, because there's two reasons for that. One, I enjoy teaching. I enjoy the different stimulus that it gives me and different people that I get to interact with without having like the sports side of it being like the sole focus. Like I like the different challenges, like mentally. I don't think I would do much more training anyways if I was going full time. Like I'd probably do roughly the same amount of volume. I would probably just separate my sessions. I'd probably get bored very easily. Yeah. And then the second reason why I wouldn't go full time is there's just not enough money. Like you're not guaranteed money. You don't have any benefits if you get injured, or like any benefits in general. Like there's no paycheck every month. Like you don't know what sponsors you could have or like could drop. Like it's just not certain, right? Like you could have an injury one year and you get nothing. Like if you don't make the top 20 this year, you literally don't make any money. Like you paid to go to Madison out of pocket. You don't bring back any money. Like I won 5,000 at the semifinals for winning. I haven't gone it yet. They wait until the end of the season to like get it. But like, why would you quit your full-time job for $5,000, right? Like, and even if you do make it into the top 20, you're making 8,000 for 20th place. I think you don't get really that much that's worth it until like 5th or 6th place. Like maybe 10th place a little bit, but it's not a livable wage that's like comfortable. And like I said, like you don't have like all these benefits involved in it. Like I don't know. To me, I don't like, there's only a handful of athletes, I feel like, on the women and men's side that are really taking advantage of it and can do it and are making, great living. I think a lot of them are more American too. I think that the market and the sponsorships are a lot like just more in the States than Canada. And then on top of it, like, I think that I would have to do a lot more of like posting on my social media and stuff like that to kind of get myself more out there. And like, I'm not one that like posts a bunch of pictures of like sports bras and like booty shorts and stuff like that. Like I'm a teacher. I have students that follow me. I'm mostly posting, random workouts and stuff like that, but I'm not posting like all the time. I think I would have to do a better job of at least marketing myself as an athlete to even get more sponsorships. But yeah, I think the keeping a full-time job is important.
Comparing,
but like a lot of people quit school. I'm seeing people quit college, quit their jobs, leave their families behind, and come back with no money year after year. Like, I don't know. I couldn't do that. I got bills to pay.
Yeah. Carolyne, having played professional hockey, and then obviously you said that folded, but comparing what you guys had and the benefits on that level in Canada to what our sport is offering at the moment, how can you compare the two, and how would you as an elite athlete fill those gaps?
Well, I wouldn't say we got much as a professional women's hockey. Like that was one of the reasons why we're trying to build something that's bigger. It's because a lot of us were juggling this full-time job with playing hockey, and we weren't getting that much money, and we didn't have like any like benefits and stuff like that. So we weren't putting out the best product on the ice because we're juggling a bunch of different things at once. And like, obviously the goal is to get to the point where we can be full-time athletes. I would be lying if I said I wouldn't want to be a full-time athlete. Like, that's the dream. But there needs to be the money involved and the benefits involved and the support system involved to get to that level. And neither CrossFit or hockey is really there yet, for most people.
But I mean, the men's hockey league makes very good money.
Very. Yep. The men's hockey league. not the women's.
No, because I know the cash, the paychecks that they are getting is more than the first, second, and third place finishes at the games. I mean, that's like a year's wages. I mean, and they have benefits, and they fly first class, and the nutrition is looked after. So what do we need to do to get to that level? I mean,
I think it's going to take time. It takes time. Like, we're still a relatively new sport. Hockey's been around forever. Women's hockey has been around for way longer than CrossFit. And we're still not there yet in order to pay a salary for, like a sustain, to have a good paying job. I think it just takes more investments from sponsors, more visibility for both hockey and CrossFit. So they need to continue to invest into good media. For a while, CrossFit got rid of their media team, and I think that was horrible because the sport was just taking off, and we have some great Netflix documentaries and stuff like that. So you want to be showcasing the elite of the sports. You want to be showcasing your sport as much as possible. One of the things from women's hockey is there's just lack of visibility. It's not on TV very often at all. It's hard, you just don't know when people are playing and stuff like that. So you just don't get that same support in the stands as you do at the Olympics. At the Olympics, they're so popular. Team USA versus Team Canada, gold medal final almost every single time, millions of views. They finish the Olympics, they go back to their leagues, and it's basically empty stadiums because no one talks about it. There's not as much support. So I think you just have to continue to talk about it, to showcase it, and to show up to more female sports and stuff like that. Because a lot of people say, oh, we support women's hockey. I'm like, have you been to a game? Nope. Okay, well, I'll watch a game. So I think people enjoy CrossFit. It's very popular. And I think we're going to just continue to grow. But I think the media side of it we need to continue to invest into that, because if you don't see it as much, you just don't know about it as much. But I think we'll get there. It takes time though. It takes time to get to where I think we could go with ESPN and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think in America they're broadcasting it more and more every year, CBS being involved this year. And I know they have highlights on different channels and so on, but I think involving the rest of the world as well. And I'm getting international media, on top of that as well, because mostly not because the sport originated in America. It's fair to say that's why there were 360 Americans coming out on the field in the opening ceremony. It's still, it's growing, but I mean, we've still got a long way to go.
And that's also why the games are going to stay in the States for now, because that's where the majority of the athletes are still coming from. And as much as it's growing internationally, I just don't see them moving from the States yet until it grows even more internationally, which means more investment into the, international medias. I think in 2019, they did a good job of broadcasting in different languages and stuff like that. And those are great steps, in the right direction. But yeah, I think continue to invest, internationally, having international athletes do well, is also going to help. So as much, and that national championship idea and that they added in 2019 was a good idea, because it forces people within their country to start fighting for that national championship, even though they may not be competitive to go to the games. It still creates, a chase within that country to to try to win the national championship and then grow the sport that way. So I did like that idea. I don't think we were ready to add them to the games, but I like the idea of having national champions within countries to, continue to grow the sport there. And then I love the inclusion this year of different able bodies and all of, I think they had 3 divisions this year added, and then only 5 athletes per category. But I look forward to seeing how that one grows in the upcoming years also, because that's a community that absolutely loves CrossFit, and and CrossFit is for everyone and anyone. So the age groups are all the way until 65 plus, and then when we look at different able bodies and stuff like that, I think that's we're coming full circle with inclusion there. So I think that that side of it's only going to continue to grow, and that was a great addition to the games this year.
I think what CrossFit Inc. is doing is they're moving in the right direction, and I think we are growing. The company and the sport is growing at a rapid speed. I do think that they had a few, and I want to call it speed wobbles. It was, in some decisions, was just catastrophic. Getting rid of the media, taking off their Facebook and Instagram pages for I don't know how long. I mean, that was ridiculous.
They had like 3 million. They had. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that Instagram had like 2 or 3 million followers at that point, and their Facebook had similar, maybe like 1 to 2 million, and then it got deleted. And like that's huge marketing loss to delete your Instagram. Like now I think it's back at like 1 point something million,
but it could have been
it's still
fixed.
Not where it was. It could have been, it could have been at like 4 or 5 by now. So that was a huge loss, but also there's been a lot of changes within the company since that. So I do think we're still taking the right steps forward, but there were mistakes made along the way.
I'm not going to dwell on that and the mistakes that were made. We already covered that, but I think definitely investing in media, or not investing, maybe some investment, but collaborating more with the international market, and because you can see, South America, they're coming in. I mean, they've got so many people that enter the Open.
South America,
I mean, I think they're the 3rd most participants in the Open. Asia,
I want to say
up and coming, CrossFit continent. But if they catch on, it's gonna boom. It's gonna be crazy, because the amount of talent,
oh my gosh,
the weightlifters and the gymnastics that's gonna come, nobody else stands a chance. So there's so much opportunity.
That's the thing. So Asia, like, if the thing with Asia is, because it's not an Olympic sport, like they invest everything in Olympians, right? Like weightlifting and gymnasts for Olympics, and CrossFit hasn't been as big because it's not an Olympic sport. But if they ever caught on to CrossFit, that would be I would be very curious to what type of athlete, because they have phenomenal athletes there.
No, it's going to be insane, and I'm keeping an eye on it, and I'm trying to organize an interview with one of the guys that's head of the Asia CrossFit Championship, just to see what's happening there. And I happened to be in China last year, in the beginning of the year, and just gym, it exists across CrossFit in itself, but going to the gym it's a fairly new concept there. So the gyms open up and they mushroom up and then they close back down. It's not, it just happens overnight. It's there, and then the next day it's gone.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be interesting if you get these athletes that's really, really good, but not necessarily good enough to go to the Olympics, and then using that talent and going into CrossFit. It's going to be exciting. I really, really hope it happens, because that's going to be a whole different athlete that comes out of there.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And like in the past year with COVID, I saw this on a podcast. I don't know what podcast the other day that had mentioned this, and I was agreeing with it, was that like everyone was at home during COVID. Like that was a great opportunity for CrossFit to pump out every single like information they could to people on like how to work out, or this is CrossFit health, etc. This is the sport of CrossFit. put some documents from the games, like really Netflix, like just put CrossFit everywhere. And I thought that like the Instagram fell a little bit short on really promoting and using this time where everyone was at home, literally doing nothing but on their phones or watching Netflix, to not pump out as much content in this past year and a half.
Yeah.
Like I think that was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's where a good media team comes in, I mean, I enjoyed the coverage this year, specifically them actually covering the age divisions and now the adaptive athletes as well. In prior years, I think it was 2019, there was no coverage at all. So, I mean, that's already a step in the right direction. So I think that in saying that, I just want to bring it back as to what you were saying, is that there was missed opportunities, and I still think there are missing opportunities, globally. But I mean, as you said, in during COVID, we were all sitting at home. All you have is your cell phone. You have the internet if you're lucky enough, and CrossFitters are obsessed, love the sport. If you can't do it, you want to talk about it. You want to consume information.
Exactly.
So, and especially, people, I know I live with somebody that started CrossFit 2 months before our country went into lockdown, so they were just getting excited and now they have to train at home, So no, I definitely agree. And, but I'm excited. I think under the new leadership, there's already some big changes coming, and you can already see them moving into the right direction. But yeah, I think definitely internationally there's some space to grow there.
Yeah, there's definitely some space internationally to grow.
Carolyne, are you coming back next year? What is the rest of I call it the off season, because I mean, you guys train so freaking hard. I don't see it as an off season, but in off season, what's your plans for the rest of the year? Are you coming back next year?
Plans, taking this week off, taking it nice and slow now. Next thing on the agenda will be to try to compete at the Rogue Invitational. That'll be in October in Texas, I believe it is. It'll be extremely competitive to try to qualify there. I'm not, because everyone wants to do it. Rogue has done a phenomenal job at supporting athletes throughout these past years. It's probably one of the best competitions I've ever done. Last year was the Rogue Invitational, so I hope to be able to do that. Other than that one, I'll look at what else pops up throughout the year. I know there's Dubai and Wadapalooza. I'm less keen to go to Dubai because, well, one, there's a big time difference, and I just can't afford to take that many days off of work at that time of the year. And a lot of times the programming, I mean, I think the one year I went, there was 2 swimming events, a bunch of long distance running and stuff like that. So less my forte of events. But yeah, I will look to try to qualify again next year. Like I said before, it's extremely hard just to make it there. And you can't assume that you're going to make it again next year. There's new upcoming talent every year, different people, coming out of nowhere. So I'm going to work hard to fix some of the holes that I have in my game and try to be there next year. That's the goal always.
So you spoke about Dubai being such a big time difference for you, and obviously financially, we spoke about it earlier. You have a job, you play 2 different sports. How, with the new change, or with the change that started way back in 2019 with them getting rid of regionals, how do you decide now, and then getting rid of sanctionals and back to semifinals? How do you decide which events you actually compete at? I mean, Rogue Invitational.
To be honest, I look at how much it costs, how much time I have to take off work. Can I win money? Realistically, is there money to win? If I don't feel I'm gonna win money to cover my cost of the trip and win money, it's not worth it for me. I don't need the experience every year to go to all these comps. So it really comes down to, what are my chances of adding money to the bank? If I'm honest, and then I try to stay within certain time zones and not travel as much to Europe or other places, just because that means I need to travel for more days, which during the year probably means more days off of work, which is just harder to get. I mean, my school's super supportive of what I do, but I just don't like missing. Like, I don't want to miss a week of school. Like, that's very hard to come back to that. Yeah, it's stressful missing work and knowing what the kids are doing for a week or not doing for a week is what I should say.
Then you have to pick up the pieces when you come back. I mean, what are they doing when you're not there?
Yeah, like you got some students that did everything and they're way ahead, and other students that did nothing and they're way behind, and it's so stressful. So that's one of the reasons I also don't do a lot of like international, like overseas competition. So Dubai is definitely one that like it's harder to go to. Sometimes it's during my Christmas break. So we get 2 weeks off during that time. So if it happens to be within there, it's not that bad. But if it's time off work, then to me, it's not worth it if I can't come back and break even or make money. Like it.
I mean, but
I think earlier on, I wanted the experience, but now like I've already done the games. I've done Dubai, I've done Rogue, I've done a lot of these Wadapalooza and all these comps. So it's like, it's not about the experience. It's just like money.
But I mean, Dubai has been it's been famous for having pretty big paychecks, and regardless of where you place, you get money, but not like small pocket change. You get more than you got now for winning the Atlas Games just by placing, I don't know, last or something.
Yes. So the year that I went, I think they gave us like 2,000 or 2,500 to just make it there, which covered like the flight and some of the hotel. And I think if you finish like dead last, you got 1,000. So it wasn't like ridiculous, but I went because I had never gone to the games at that point, and that was like my CrossFit games going there. I still think that like to make that type of money, you still have to place pretty high at those events. I'm not sure what, but like last year they had put a bunch of prize purse, but they just never got to do it because of COVID. So I'll have to take a look at, what the money is and kind of evaluate my chances and stuff like that. I don't like to go to a trip and it's all out of pocket because I don't have sponsors paying for everything, and come out on the negative side of it. And obviously like there's some comps that you're going to come out on the negative because you just didn't perform as well. And there's like, that happens, but you play the odds. But may the odds be in your favor.
Teacher Carolyne, you must be quite a hit at the school with the kids, the boys must challenge you, can you beat me in this, Do you have some CrossFitters at your school that you've inspired to train?
Yeah, I have a few that have started CrossFit now, which is really cool. A lot of them being females. One girl did an Olympic lifting competition when she was in grade 12. A couple other girls have done CrossFit locally. So it's pretty cool to watch them. Most of the boys just ask to arm wrestle. That's
there we go.
That's like the one question that they always ask. It's like, could we do an arm wrestling competition? I'm like, I don't train arm wrestling. Like, I'm like, I don't do it. But yeah, they definitely respect me a lot, and they know that I'm very knowledgeable in workouts. So I get a lot of them after they graduate also that reach out to me and ask for what they can do to get, certain goals that they have like physically. So that's really cool.
Awesome. Carolyne, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know you and your backstory and what you're going to do this year and how the games went. If the listeners want to catch up with you and follow you on social media, where's the best place to contact you if they want to chat you and maybe they have a question, or just to see what you're up to?
Probably Instagram is the easiest thing. My handle is cprevo27.
Awesome.
That's the easy way now.
That is, Instagram is a big one for the CrossFitters I've seen.
Yeah.
Carolyne, it's been great. Have a lovely day, and enjoy your off week and a half or whatever is left of your downtime after the games. Congratulations once again, and we're really looking forward to seeing you back on the big stage, throwing it down and showcasing your hard work.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I
All
look
right.
forward to competing again, but I'll take a little bit of rest time for now.
All the best, eh? Cheers.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Just Elite. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and please, please, please leave a comment.